Can you guys turn on your microphones for me, please? And then you hit your.
We got awful quiet out there.
Sorry for the delay. We've had some technical difficulties.
Back the snow off a little bit. I think it's still gonna get sticky. Still long ones, I don't have to. No. Oh, you know, I have to get home. The halls, and they want me to connect those.
She did. She was there.
I checked it. Make more than 1900.
Yeah. Not worth it.
But they did change it. Well, any luck? That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes. So actually, if they sign them in.
Are we good? Okay. Sorry for the delay. Start the meeting.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We do not have any minutes. Microphone's loud. We don't have any minutes from last month, so we're gonna skip that. We'll do Dana first.
Ex parte, I guess. Oh. Whole business.
Ken Harris is our new zoning director. I'll let him introduce himself. And I don't think it's turned on either. Button you have to hit.
How's that? My name's Kent Harris. I'm the new, brand new, as in day two, planning and zoning director. Formerly was a fire marshal in Olathe, Kansas for 22 years. Worked extensively with our planning and zoning folks there. I helped grow the city from 30,000 population to when I left, it was around 124,000. So my ink and my stamp is on a lot of buildings. When you drive through town, if you go through there and you look at a building, I probably had something to do with it. As I told the commission and everybody else, I want to be an asset to the county. I live down here. I want to be part of it. And that's why I put my hat in the ring. And hopefully I'll be an asset for everyone. So it's kind of what I did. I've got a background in law enforcement as well. When I left the fire marshal's office, I had the sheriff of Johnson County called me up and said, "Where do you think you're going?" And I'm like, last time I heard somebody say that, they went to jail. So I decided, I said, "What can I do for you, Sheriff?" And he goes, "Well, we need you to come and work with us." So I did that for another 8 or 9 years until he retired. I said, "If you're going, I'm going." So I did that. So at any rate, I'm open to anybody's phone calls. I'm open to, stopping by and let's go get a cup of coffee, or I've got a coffee pot I brought my own to the office, so I make my coffee every morning nice and fresh. I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
And then our newest member, Daniel, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Dan Black. I've lived here my whole life. I'm Bell. And that's about it.
You want to go around the table and introduce yourselves?
Again? I'm Hal Eggers. I live at Blue Mountain most of my life. I'm retired from the Millwright Local 1529 out of Kansas City. And like I said, I'm trying to be an asset to the planning and zoning, so I'm kind of new at this, but bear with me.
Ed Anderson, Lacey, Kansas. Been on this board longer than I care to remember. So, but I'm here to serve the county in whatever capacity I can, and hopefully we make a right decision for everybody involved.
I'm Paul Porter, and I'm on your route. So we've met. But welcome, both of you. And I live from Lacine, just outside of Lacine, and lived here for 11 years and been on this board for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, 4 years, I don't know. It all is kind of a blur at this point. But enjoy it, glad to serve, and just want to make this place a great place.
I'm Elizabeth Staten. I've been here 3 years, lived in Pleasanton most of my life. This is my first meeting as a chairwoman, so hopefully I don't screw it up.
Donnie Ryan Anderson, I'm from Blue Mound, lived there my whole life. I got appointed board to hope that I can make some difference.
So, do we have any ex parte communication to disclose? And for the new member, that is just communication about the cup in front of us amongst the members.
Yes, I do. I mean, I have corresponded with the applicant for this particular CUP to discuss procedural issues, primarily in Darren in his part-time capacity was not available 100% of the time. And so I made myself available to answer procedural questions so that we could get all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So, but that's the extent of it.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll start the cup proceedings. This is Cup 2502, Making Disciplines, Inc. And do we have a representative for that cup? Could you please come up and speak?
Good evening, members of the commission. So my name is Ryan Blackstock, and I'm the founder and executive director of Making Disciples, Inc. We are doing business as Living Stones Lodge. So if you see the two names, that's what's going on. The legal name is Making Disciples, Inc., and we would do business as Living Stones Lodge. So tonight, I have my wife here with me, Keely. We have two daughters, Abigail and Ella, who are 22 and 20 years old. Just a little bit about us. We were missionaries in Central America and serving in El Salvador for 10 years and moved back to Kansas in 2017 and have been living in Overland Park since then, currently on staff at a church there called Grace Church in Overland Park. So for many years now, we have personally observed, as I'm sure many of you have, a cultural phenomenon happening where a lot of young men in our culture are kind of experiencing this failure to launch. It's even become a term that we use, right? Where a lot of young men are just struggling to grow into men of character who know who they are and why they exist. And so it seems to be a big problem. There may be even men coming to mind right now for those of you who are sitting here thinking of guys that think they're good guys, but they're staying in the basement playing video games all day and they need to kind of get out there and start being men. So Living Stones Lodge is a faith-based nonprofit organization to help young men 18 to 25 years old find their identity and purpose through an 8-month-long wilderness discipleship program. So that's what we desire to use the property for, is to have young men come there, spend 8 months with us. So it's not long-term, and then they would go on to be productive members of society is the hope. So it gives men the opportunity to put life on pause for 8 months and not have to worry about jobs or bills or phones or video games or screens of any kind, and just be able to focus on answering two really important questions. So the two really important questions that we want them to be able to answer during their time with us is, who am I and why do I exist? And I know those are kind of existential, deep questions, right? But if they can find the answers to those, their identity and their purpose, it's really going to help them go into society and be able to be really great husbands and fathers and employees and business owners and ministry leaders, right? And we believe that if they can discover the biblical answers to those two questions, then whatever they end up doing next after this program is really going to be much better. And the impact it can have on future wives and children and employers is really cannot be overstated. So 18 years old is the minimum age, so they can decide to be there. They're legally adults, right? There's nobody that gets sent to Living Stones. It's not, well, my parents want me to be there. We want young men who are deciding to be there, right? They're of age and they can decide to be there. 25 years old is kind of the maximum age we put on it, just because after 25 years old, generally, life gets more complicated. You got jobs and mortgages and different things. And so the ability to be able to kind of put things on pause and come and do a program like this becomes less likely, right? So that's why we have the age limit there. So Living Stones Lodge, what we're wanting to start here is following a proven ministry model from an organization that's in Tennessee called Narrowgate Lodge. So this ministry in Tennessee, they've been doing this exact same thing for over 20 years now. And so they've got a really well-defined ministry model that they've worked out all the kinks. They've got over 500 guys who have graduated from their program there, and just story after story after story of guys whose lives and directions were changed because of having spent this 8 months going through this kind of discipleship program. So actually, one of the young men who went through the Narrowgate Lodge program is here with us this evening. So Trent Twaddell's here with us. He might have a chance to share later about his experience there. I definitely have some more information about this ministry in Tennessee, so if anybody afterwards was interested in being able to look at that model more that we're going to follow, kind of seeing what they've been doing for 20 years, we've got that information available afterwards. So I can imagine that there's a lot of questions about what Living Stones Lodge actually is and what it isn't. I can imagine if I lived here and was imagining something or heard about a program moving in that was going to be working with young men, I would have a lot of questions. I definitely would. I would want to know that it wasn't something that was going to be detrimental to my family. I would want to know that it was something that wasn't going to be detrimental to the community. I totally get that. I would feel the same way. So I'd like to take just a minute and tell you guys about the kind of young men that will be accepted into the Living Stones Lodge program, because I think it really helps kind of narrow it down. So to begin with, all participants would go through a rigorous, targeted selection, application, and screening process that includes a criminal background check. So it's not just, hey, y'all come. There's a very strict, rigorous application process to become a participant in Living Stones Lodge. We are not looking for anyone who's troubled. We're not looking for anybody who's got a criminal background that's violent or any kind of sexual misconduct. Those kind of guys would not be allowed to participate. So the kind of guys we are looking for are good young men that need a nudge in the right direction to help grow and mature. There are actually 6 characteristics that we're looking for in applicants. So as we go through this application process, we're meeting with them, we're talking with them, and we're looking for these 6 characteristics. So I'll just share them with you real quickly. The first one is a desire to change. Applicants should be looking for something different in their lives that can help them achieve a more positive approach to life. We're looking for guys that are running to something good, not guys that are running away from something bad. Right? Those kind of guys aren't going to be a good fit. So they need to have a desire to change. If they don't want to change, they're not going to be a good fit for Living Stones Lodge. Second one is an openness to faith. So applicants should at least be open to consider Christianity as the vehicle or path to life. They don't have to be a Christian to come participate, but they need to be at least willing to consider Christianity, consider the gospel, consider what God would say in the Bible. The third characteristic is receptivity to feedback. Applicants should not be totally closed-minded to feedback on their behavior, contributions, or actions. We're looking to see if there's evidence in their life, maybe a coach or a neighbor or a parent having given them advice in their life, and then they put it into action, right? That's a very good characteristic of being teachable, being willing to change. The fourth characteristic is a learning orientation. So applicants should be able to cite examples of where they have learned from their experiences in the past. Again, a very important life skill, right? Where if we go through something difficult or we go through a hard time, the skill of being able to learn from it and put that application into future experiences is very important. The fifth characteristic is discipline and tenacity. Applicants should have some examples where they have been successful at something where their perseverance and tenacity helped them succeed. Again, maybe that's a sports example or something, maybe a job or some kind of work situation where they were faced with a difficult task or thing to accomplish, and they were able to show tenacity and perseverance to push through it. And then the final one, the sixth one, is authenticity. So applicants should be able to display some level of humility, sincerity, integrity, and there may not be tons of examples of it yet. That's one of the reasons they're coming to us, but we want to see some evidence of that in their lives. So again, as you can see, we're not just allowing anyone to participate. We do not want guys who are troublemakers. We want young men who are ready to grow and mature. Having troublemakers there would be exactly opposite of what we're trying to achieve in the program. It would be counterproductive. So these regular guys who will greatly benefit from this 8-month-long nudge in the right direction. You can imagine for a lot of guys, the idea of turning in their phone, their car, their computer, their PlayStation, their Xbox is a tall order, right? So for those guys to be willing to do that, it means that they're ready to change, they're ready to grow. Many of you, again, may have a young man in your life that comes to mind right now, somebody who is a good guy, but could use some help growing up into the man of character. And those are the kind of guys we're trying to reach. So let me tell you a few things about what Living Stones Lodge is not, right? So it's not a drug rehab facility. That's a common question we get, and it is definitely not that. We will not have anyone who is actively dealing with substance abuse in the program. And we won't be set up for that. That would also be counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So there'll be no kind of drug treatment on the program. That's not a halfway house or transitional facility for those who have been incarcerated. No one gets sent to Living Stones Lodge. The courts won't send them there. Parents won't send them there. Parole officers won't send them there. No one gets sent to Living Stones Lodge. You have to want to be there. You have to voluntarily come be a part of it. So we don't have any kind of agreements with the courts where, they're funneling troubled youth or juvenile delinquents. That's not what the program is. We're definitely not looking for guys who are wanting to cause trouble. That would be counterproductive, again, to what we're trying to do. So now I'd like to briefly describe what the Living Stones Lodge program will look like and how we desire to use the property, to use the land. So during the 8-month stay in the program, the participants will go through 3 different phases, right? So I'll describe the 3 phases to you. So phase 1 is where the guys will actually be camping. So we're going to give them a tent and a sleeping bag, and there'll be kind of a designated camping area. And for a month, a solid month, they're going to be camping. Now, we'll have to make adjustments for weather, like this weather we've got coming in this weekend, where obviously we don't want them outside in the freezing cold and snow. But as much as possible, they're going to be camping. Now, for some guys to be a part of the program, camping something maybe they've done all their life. And so sleeping out in the tent for a month won't be a big deal. For other guys, it's going to be a big deal. Maybe they come from a city background or, they just never been camping. And so roughing it out in the woods for a month is going to be stretching of them. But it's really done on purpose. And one of the purposes is to help kind of strip away all the things that we think are so important and have them be able to see that, hey, I can do hard things. For 35 days, I was able to camp. I learned wilderness skills. I learned camping skills. I can cook over a campfire now. I know how to set up a tent. I know how to make it work, right? So a lot of those things end up building confidence in these young men then to be able to go do the hard things that life requires of them. So that's phase 1. Phase 2, they would then move into more of a bunkhouse style structure. The building we have in mind and that is on the site plan that you guys have would be kind of a bunkhouse / workshop. So in addition to having some just simple bunk beds and things where the guys would stay, there would also be a workshop where they would be able to do some woodworking, maybe some metalworking, some things like that. Again, learning how to do good life skills, how to use tools, how to make things, building confidence through craftsmanship and being able to build something that actually is worthwhile. So during this time, they're going to be 4 months In this phase, they're going to be doing the wilderness activities. We're planning on doing some agricultural things where they're going to be growing things and being able to see, hey, where does my food come from, and how much work goes into producing the food that many times they just take for granted. They'll be doing Bible studies, learning practical skills, how to cook, how to clean, how to do laundry, how to change the oil in their car, very practical things that men should know. That's phase 2. And then the final phase, the last 3 months of their time with us, would be moving into kind of the main residence. We call it a lodge, but it's really just a house, a bigger house. And so during this time, they're going to be getting ready to kind of move back into real life. So they're going to have a bedroom, maybe they have a roommate or two, but it's going to be a little bit more like real life that they'll go to after they graduate. In this phase, we're really focusing on helping them decide what's next. Do they need to go to college? Do they need to go to a trade school? Do they need to start a company? Do they need to go into the ministry somehow? We're really trying to help them figure out what's next, how to find a good local church, wherever home ends up being for them when they go back. We're trying to help them learn good financial principles, how to budget, how to not spend more than you make, just simple things that a lot of young men just don't know. So we're trying to give them those practical skills. So they'll do that for the last 3 months, and then finally it concludes with a graduation ceremony. And one of the things they'll share during this graduation ceremony is they're going to be able to share with their family and those who are in attendance what the answer to those 2 important questions are. Who am I, and why do I exist? They'll be able to share the answers that they discovered throughout their time with us at Stones with those who are in attendance at the graduation. After they leave the graduation, one of the things we'll do is we'll match them up with a previous graduate, and that previous graduate will stay in touch with them and stay in contact with them over the next year to just help them reacclimate to real life, right? One of the great things about being in a rural area and in the wilderness and apart and away from all the distractions that they're used to is that they learn to live without those things. But one of the things we want to do is make sure we're setting them up for success when they go back into real life and have all those things at their disposal again, that they're able to handle those things with wisdom and in a good way. So that's the 3 phases and then the graduation. An integral part of this program will be that my wife, Keely, and I will be living on the property in the main residence house. A big part of the idea is that we would be available for just the conversations and teaching opportunities that would happen. We're also really wanting to make sure that they see a good example of a couple who's at least trying to live in a godly way, in a God-honoring marriage. And so having them be able to have an up-close example of what that might look like is an important part of the program as well. So I know there's probably questions I didn't answer here, and I am available and willing to answer questions tonight or anytime afterwards if anybody has questions. I've got cards and some handouts available for anybody that would like them. Also the information about Narrowgate Lodge, the ministry in Tennessee that I mentioned. I've got a page with some QR codes and links where you can watch some quick videos that would kind of give you a comprehensive view of the model that we're trying to reproduce here in Kansas. So, thank you.
Sorry. Does the board have any questions?
So what I'm hearing is our law enforcement won't have to worry about runaways and that.
Won't have to worry about what? Sorry?
Our law enforcement will not have to worry about runaways from your camp.
No, sir.
And how many buildings have you got on the ground right now?
On the property currently, there's only a pole barn. No.
Just a barn?
Yes, sir.
And so you're going to build a house and that later on?
Yes, sir.
And is water in that location where you're at? Rural water?
Yeah, there's rural water and electricity at the street.
What's your anticipated ramp up to full operation time? Because I know you're going to do some mean, but you're not living in the pole barn with your wife,
No.
assuming, although it has been done out here.
Yeah.
What's your time frame as far as from the time you get some sort of approval to full operation?
Yeah, great question. So once we get approval, we would, the next step would bring utilities on. So I've already been in conversations with Heartland, Rural Electric Cooperative, and also the water district to talk about how that would be done. They've already are doing surveys to make a plan for bringing utilities on. So next would bring utilities. Then after that, we would look to build the first building, which would be the kind of the bunkhouse / workshop. We would start with that building and be able to have a small living quarters for my wife and I that would be separate from the guys, a small kind of temporary kitchen area that we'd be able to use. And then once time and funding allowed, then we would move on to building the second building, which would be the larger kind of main residence that we would use. So as far as the time frame, probably within, if we were to get approval, we would start the utility work right away and then hope to start breaking ground on the that lot or the bunkhouse / workshop within 3 months.
I have two questions. First, how do you find these young men? Do they come to you and apply, or do you just see someone in your church that might need help and you approach them?
Yeah, great question. So most of the guys will come through referrals. So obviously we'll do some kind of a web presence and social media and things like that, but we would find that most of the guys end up coming through referrals or relationships with churches. That would be a big desire of ours, to have really great relationships with community groups and churches in the area. But that would be where most of them would come from. Again, most people we talk to, someone immediately comes to mind that they say, oh, you know, my grandson or my neighbor or my friend's son would be a great fit for that. So it seems like there's no shortage of guys that would be potential applicants.
And there are several working farms surrounding your property.
Mhm.
How are you going to handle having that many people, or having those people come in, and are you going to tell them like the rules of stay on people's properties, and this is not a wildlife park, this is these are some people, other people's farms? Are you going to handle that, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever they would come in, there's a very detailed orientation process that they would go through. We currently, on the property that we're wanting to buy, there are fences on 3 sides, and so part of the survey that is already in motion as part of the contract to purchase, we would be clearly marking the southern boundary that doesn't have a fence on it and installing a fence as part of the initial process. And then it would be very clear to all the participants that you stay within the fence. Leaving without permission is grounds for being removed for the program, so it is taken very seriously. There are very, very strict rules that they need to abide by, and one of them is you don't leave the property without permission, and definitely they're not going to have permission to be going on other people's property unless there's an arrangement made.
And what is your max capacity, do you think?
Yeah, so the max capacity we would look at would be 24 guys at one time, but that's if we had all the classes full. So the idea is once we're running up and running with all the buildings and programs in place, that there would be a new class of guys, because they start in groups together, that would start every other month, a new one, and they would never be larger than 6 guys in a class. And that's if we found 6 guys that were ready to start at that time. More likely is probably 16 to 18 guys would be full.
Okay.
16, 18 students or whatever,
Mhm.
then is it just going to be you and your wife on there, or are there going to be counselors or teachers?
Yeah.
How
So
many would that be?
Yeah, so kind of from a staff standpoint, so to begin with, it'd just be my wife and I. And then again, as time and funding would allow, we would want to add some other staff. But probably the staff would not be living on site. So maybe they would live in Pleasanton and then just commute to be a part of what was going on during the day.
Where does the funding come from?
Yeah, so all the funding at this point has come from donors who have heard about what we're doing and decided to be a part of supporting the ministry, donated money.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll have public comment. Please keep it brief. We want to set a time limit or just.
Minutes. Couple minutes. Plus questions.
2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll leave extra time for questions. And list your name and round about where you live.
Trenton Upner. I own 40 acres to the north, and I own 20 acres to the east. Pretty much wrap the whole backside of it, these guys. I'm all excited that if there's anybody that wants to do anything for young men this day and age, we need it. My concerns are a lot. It would be no different than if I took my horses and my cows up to your backyard and put an arena in your backyard, and you'd have some concerns and some worries, which is expected. I guess the thing I'm looking at is 25 young men. I hunt. That's going to be over. Everything that's in a section of 80 acres is right in the middle of a section. Every deer on the place is leaving. Everything's leaving. That's just one small thing. My biggest concern is I have 2 girls. I rodeo. One's 15, one's 12. They ride their horses down that fence line every day. Now I've got to worry about 25 young men that I don't know. You say it's opened up to kind of a volunteer deal, or it's whoever, maybe you do know about their background. It's pretty easy to manipulate and lie and twist. I go to church, I'm a Christian, but we're all sinners, and things can happen no matter what you say you are. So there's a lot of concern there with 25 young men on 80 acres. That's basically 7 families of 4 that have now just moved in my backyard. That's concerning. Restrooms, they're going to be camping. They still got to go somewhere. My fence was put back in the WPR days. Those that don't know, that's worker right days. The fence is old. It's lucky it's there. Most that property hasn't been used forever. It was Delbert Cannon that ran it forever, and him and I were handshaking buddies, and we just built fixed fence as we went. I've got 8 horses that are worth a lot of money because, like I said, I rodeo. I've got to worry about young men wanting to pet the pretty horse. I've got cattle on the other side, roping cattle. Give it any day there could be beef cattle there. Now I got to worry about, and it's not that I'm saying they're going to do anything. It might be great, but I got to worry. There's a lot of concerns there. I know my other neighbors would like to come up and talk, but I don't know if they got access to guns. One of my horses is going to die. I don't know if they got access to binoculars. My house is just not very far away from their tree line. There's just a lot of things. You're talking about city boys. I'm a millwright. I've been in the city every day for 30 years now. City boys and country boys are not the same. It's a whole different game. And that's a big concern. But good luck.
Thank you.
My name is Margaret Stauffer. We have 100 acres within 1,000 feet, and it's our happy place. And we have 2 young girls that explore the property, and I am scared for their safety. If they were to come across curious boys trespassing, they would not want to ever come down again. So I say no. Thank you.
My name's Mark Jenkins. I own the 80 just directly to the west of the property. A concern that we have is you had stated that you're trying to become men of character. The word trying is pretty hard. The issue we have, we recently were robbed. I do have the fence, and unfortunately, it was easy to cut the fence and to be violated. 2 daughters is extremely difficult. We are part of the community. We're actually in the process of moving to the area, and I think the biggest thing that we have is the safety and right across the road. 24, 25, 10, 5 young men with 2 adults, no supervision, 2 o'clock in the morning, let's cross the fence. So we would also oppose to not have this, just from a safety standpoint.
My name is Clayton Johnston. I'm a property owner just north of the property at the corner of, southeast corner of Vernon and 800. And I would ask that the commission deny this permit. I think the mission is admirable, but inherent, and I bought the property from Steve Thompson years ago, probably 7, 8 years ago. We're Kansas City, we're moving down here. We love the peace and tranquility as property owners, and it scares us to death to understand that this mission cannot work on the footprint that they're acquiring. It doesn't work. You can't secure someone's right to privacy, however you define that, with all those folks. And I understand what they're trying to do with the right type of applicant, but I've grown up in the city. I've lived down here. You don't know you have a problem until you have a problem. You just don't with a kid. You can't predict that. So it does scare me. And I feel like I bought it with the intent that we're going to pay the property and be good citizens and good neighbors, invest in the property. And it doesn't work. And I think the commission needs to ask itself questions around the logistics. I talked about utilities, didn't talk about sewer. The ground lays higher south of me on this said property. A lake feeds into my lake. How do you handle sewage with 24 plus humans, plus others? I don't see it. It's going to be a problem. Water quality. We fish this lake every week. We would ask you to deny it, and it's zoned for ag. The district is created that way with certain inherent rights to property owners for, however you define peace and tranquility as farmers, ranchers, people that are just owning property in this county. So that would be my plea. I wish them well. I wish them well on another piece of property. Thank you.
Daniel Ernest, 7588 White Road, so about a mile or so down the road from where they're proposing. I don't think you can say that this won't be detrimental to the surrounding properties. So I don't think you can check that box as you're doing your review, because there is no doubt that this would be detrimental to the surrounding properties. We live here for a reason. We live in the middle of the country on gravel roads for a reason, because we don't like a whole bunch of people around us. We don't want 24 people camping in our backyard. No one in Kansas City would like it if 24 country boys went up there and camped in their backyard. I promise you they would not. We don't want 24 city guys coming down and camping in our backyards. Makes absolutely no sense. It's not why we live here. It's not why we choose to buy property here. It's not why we have farming communities here. It doesn't fit the character of the community.
Thank you.
My name is David Bartels. Darren and Hannah Foltz and me and my wife own the property at 8247 Vernon. And so Clinton's property lies right between our property. I'm going to add a little different spin to this. See, about a year ago, I was sued by a neighbor because their 5-year-old child came over to my house, knocked on the door, and my 5-year-old grandson answered that door. No one else was around, but he ended up cutting his lip. And they sued me for, initially it was $1.3 million, but it was reduced politely by their attorney for $300,000. And basically, the insurance company settled with them, even though in the state of Kansas, it is as soon as you come on to property that you're uninvited to, you're considered a trespasser, okay? Without a sign, irregardless. And that is my concern, is the same concern that everybody else has had here, is that it is a liability for someone to come on to my property, whether they hurt themselves, hurt my property, whatever. I can be sued by that person for any number of things. Believe me, just hire an attorney, right? And they can make up all kinds of stuff. So from a pure liability perspective, I am absolutely against it. So.
I'm Melvin Lohman, and I live at the corner of 800 and Vernon. I'm also concerned about the security of it, the safety aspect, the traffic, how it's going to impact me and my family. I also have several daughters, and I would ask that you do not approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Ann Johnston. I'm at 7773 Vernon Road with my husband Clayton. In addition to the points that have been raised, I've put together a document that specifically points to and compares the request against the most recent version of the zoning regulations for Linn County. And there are several conflicts here. First of all, the agricultural district under the zoning regulations says that it is to preserve and protect ag uses, to maintain rural character, for peace, tranquility, and solitude. Intense urban usage is usually premature and undesirable in an A district due to lack of infrastructure. That's in your own section 5-1. Secondly, the proposed development does not fit into any of the conditional uses allowed for A district property under your own zoning regulations. So, and I have a list of those sections as well in this document, excuse me, if you'd like to see. And then a lodging house is where money is being transacted for these young men to stay in this lodging house. It's a hotel for 8 months. I don't think that applies to this particular CUP. So, and there's a couple other points. So if you guys would like copies of this, I have it, one for each of you.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I would like.
I'll take them and pass them down.
Okay, that'd be great. Some of the statements stick together.
You were supposed to pass yours along. Oh, yeah.
Any other comments? Any objections?
I don't object. Sure.
So, as great as the mission is, if it fails, what happens to that piece of property if you were to grant this CUP? If you look beyond what they're trying to do at the current time, does that degrade the value of our property? Who's the next buyer? That can be a real problem, and they're dependent on private donations.
So at this point, yep. So,
Site plan either. So we just talked about. Table with this one. And so we get this down.
so we don't have a staff report.
Explain Darren transition.
Okay, so we are transitioning from one zoning director to another, and so we don't have some of the paperwork required for this. So we're gonna have to table this for this month, and then as soon as we get our paperwork together and the applicant might want to speak with our new zoning director about that, yeah, we're gonna table it for this month. And
So we won't. All we need to do is review. Sorry, I was the chairman before, and this is her first night. So there's a lot of change going on.
oh, we're
So I apologize. I'm just going to take the microphone for a minute. So as Elizabeth was explaining, Darren Wilson was in the process of resigning during their whole application process. Kent's first day was yesterday, and he got his computer this afternoon when I was calling him saying, "Where's the paperwork?" He printed out what he had at the beginning of this meeting, and the file marked staff report in the folder for this CUP was an old staff report. We figured that out about 7 o'clock this evening. So what we need to do, and what Elizabeth is saying, is we're going to have to table this right now until we get a staff report written. A staff report is the planning and zoning director's opinion of what it needs to be. As far as the application and all the regulations and stuff, we typically have that on hand at this point in time. So essentially, we're going to do half now and take the staff report at the next meeting, and then we would be in a position to vote with an approval or disapproval. I'll leave it to the chair to decide, but I do not anticipate any further public comment. We just have one box to check that we simply do not have the information for tonight. And we didn't find that out until, like I said, right at the beginning of the meeting. So back to you.
So we're gonna close public comments, and next meeting we will handle the staff report. And unless you just want to come, there won't be any more public comment next month. So you don't need to show up if you don't just want to hear us. We're going to make a motion to table.
So yeah, I'd make a motion that we table CUP 25-02 until our next meeting in March.
Need a second?
A second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any discussion? Sorry. We got the aye. Okay.
Sorry, buddy.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And we are going to also table our old business, which is going over our regulations for the board itself, because we do not have all our members here. And do you have a motion to table old business next month?
I'll make a motion, we'll table old business till next month, next meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.